Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Semi Soccer Experts Podcast, also known as the C
See.
Podcast. All right, Adrian, we're on episode number 44.
Before,
We're
man.
almost at 50, a couple more left. Anything
Yeah.
special about the number 44? Nothing special that I can think about. Javier Zanetti wore number 4. The legendary Inter Milan captain wore number 4. Who's the famous number 4 for Manchester United, if you could think about it?
Interesting. Really, nobody I can think of. It's just because for such a defender's number, I think right now, it's for Phil Jones. To be honest, he's the one. He's the only one carrying it for the time being. But
And
anybody else
Phil
from
Jones
Manchester
is
United?
still at Manchester United?
Yep, as it is.
And didn't I want to say Rio Ferdinand wore number 4?
Freddie with 5.
Ferdy was 5. Phil Jones is currently number 4. I don't know who wore number 4. Wow, and Phil Jones is pretty young. He's only 28 years old.
Yeah, Phil Jones he's been
He's been
around the club for a while
a
since
while. I think
2010,
his 20s.
2011 season. Yeah, 2011 seasons, who I remember.
A
Yeah, he's been
long
around,
time.
and Fergie actually proclaimed him as the new John Terry and everything. He
I
did
want
have
to say
potential, but just never lived up to it.
that Zidane wore number 5, if I'm not mistaken, and Roberto Carlos wore number 4 for Real Madrid.
Roberto Carlos, wasn't he number 3?
Was he at number 3? I don't
I
know.
know Ramos is number 4.
Ramos is number 4. The famous number 4 is for Ramos.
Yeah,
But all right, enough about numbers. Happy New Year. We're in 2021.
yes, our first episode for 2021.
First episode. Oh, you know what's special about number 4 though? Today is January 4th.
Yeah, they were recording.
They were recording today, January 4th. But again, we're Happy New Year. We're in 2021. Unfortunately, we're still in pandemic.
Yeah.
But I think there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a vaccine in the works. Well, it's already out. We just gotta distribute it to the world, and hopefully that's gonna happen soon. And hopefully we can regain some sense of normality, going back to the stadiums, going back to having fans, the culture, the atmosphere. So let's hope that it's still early in 2021, but I want to be optimistic. I'm an optimistic person. But yeah. So, Adrian, I know you wanted to talk about the most recent thing in club football on this side of the planet, the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah, so but right before the year ended, there was still, or actually right when after we recorded that episode, our last episode for 2020, there was still a championship being held for over in North America, the CONCACAF Champions League. We did touch about it a little bit, talking about LAFC, seeing how far they can go at that time. I think the game they were about to play up to that weekend was them against Club America, and that game was actually a shit show to say the least. LAFC, they were actually losing, and one of their players actually got red carded. Ochoa made an ass of himself, saying that he got hurt, blah blah blah, but he actually just really died when you look at the replays. He did like a whole Busquets type of move, and just what happened was just karma getting after him because that happened prior to the halftime for the first half, and then when second half kicked off, LAFC just stormed and just scored like 2 goals against them and just held a 3-1 lead over them, especially with one man less on the field, and pretty much handled Club America. And it's funny enough, the manager too, he was sent off as well during the game, and they actually parted ways with him after that game as well. So that was a little interesting turn of events that happened with Club America. And then after that, LAFC went to the finals and they faced against Tigres. LAFC played pretty well during that game. I actually got to watch it. And, not just me, but a lot of people who support MLS or maybe not even LAFC fans were going for them because, they want to, I think we touched about it, like, it's time for MLS to step out and just show the world, not just the world, but like, North America, like they should be taken for real. Unfortunately, they conceded 2 goals in the second half, and that was pretty much all she wrote. They ended up losing 2-1. The last goal was shot from what's his player's name, Gignac.
Gignac.
Yeah, Gignac. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong. He actually did play for the French team before, because I remember I think he was there for the 2016 Euros, and he he did he pretty much played as one of those veteran strikers that was able to get there in the box, get some space, and just score a goal right there, then and there, and that's what pretty much sealed LAFC's fate. They didn't have any more chances to tie it up or even go to extra time. So it is what it is. But with that being said, I am proud of LAFC for making it this far. They went all the way to the because there's been no MLS team that actually went into the final, and they were literally 45 minutes short from actually making it to winning the title for the CONCACAF Champions League and playing for the Club World Cup. But just have to wait till next year. What are your thoughts, Mario?
I mean, I don't, to be honest. What I saw during the semifinals versus Copa America, it seemed to be that was Carlos Velas's game.
Yeah.
And I still give credit to Carlos Vela that, he's a product of Mexico. He's a product of the Mexican youth system. He developed in Europe. I don't see LAFC getting that far without Carlos Vela. And, I understand the game to the point where I don't think one individual really makes a difference. It's not like basketball. But I think LAFC's key was Carlos Vela. I still think that the MLS sides have a long way to go, and and once again, give credit to where credit is due. LAFC got through the final not on their merit, but more on the merit that America's screw up or mess up. I saw the little incident with Ochoa. Very unfortunate, very sad. Especially him being a professional who's played in Europe, who's played in I think his 3 World Cups. 3 or 2 World Cups. He's a man who should carry himself a little more higher to a higher standard. I even LAFC went through. I wasn't seeing them beating Tigres. Tigres is the top team in Mexico, even though they didn't win the league this season. You talk about Tigres a couple years ago was dominating. They're playing. They have Gignac. Gignac, phenomenal player, phenomenal striker. Still probably could get a cap for the French national team, though he hasn't played for them in a while. And more importantly, he got that cap while playing in Mexico.
Yeah, he did.
At Tigres, they have a lot of money. They have a lot of resources. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, LAFC is not the first MLS team to make the finals. I'm pretty sure Toronto was there before.
I don't think Toronto went that far. You can check, but yeah. With that being said, I do agree that MLS still has some time. But I did mention in the last video that LAFC have really impressed me, especially the way they played against Club America. I feel like they weren't just like a regular American side playing, like typical long ball or just trying to stretch out and just doing counterattacking, football. They play like I feel like they play. It's almost as close as to like a European team. They keep possession, do 1-2s, try to get to their striker, and just try to play as best, I guess possession-based football as best they can. But obviously I still think they're inexperienced against playing top teams like that because I feel like if they had the chance to probably play a second leg, it might have been different against Tigres. Obviously, they are heavily reliant on Carlos Vela, but they also have Diego Rossi, who's another solid striker on their end, and also they have some other key players that play for them on the wings, and they impressed me. But like I said, there's still ways to go for them, and I feel like they're still lacking on that aspect.
No, I think LAFC out of all the MLS teams is pretty much the one that plays the better football of all the teams. Obviously they didn't do well this season, the 2020 season. They came in 7th overall, and I think when you add the knockout states, obviously that's a little more luck involved in that aspect. But I think over the long term, over the long run, if you did just the typical European season where you play your 38 games across the season, across the year, LAFC would be more than likely to win in that type of format. I think they are a good team. You know, Bob Bradley is a very experienced coach, coached the national team. You know, he's coached overseas, coached Egypt. He was at Swansea at one point, though, a disastrous spell. But regardless, Bob Bradley's a smart guy. He knows how to play soccer. He knows how to coach soccer. I do agree with you there. LAFC is the more impressive size of the MLS team, but I still think that MLS in general just still has a long way to go. That being said, hey, it is what it is. I tip my hat off to Tigres though. I like Tigres.
Yeah, and I don't know if you checked on Toronto being the only team in the final, but
Oh yeah, no, I have it. It was actually Real Salt Lake made the final 2011. Montreal made the final 2015. Toronto made the final in 2018. Let me just check one more time.
because I remember when I was watching the game as well, the finals, they said this is the first time Tigres actually won the CONCACAF Champions League.
This is the first time. The team with the most titles is Club America. Um, and then Cruz Azul with Club America with 7, Cruz Azul with 6, Pachuca with 5, Monterrey with 4. Interesting enough, the CONCACAF Champions League, the way it's branded now, no American team has won it, but the LA Galaxy did win the old tournament, which I'm not sure what it was called, but they did win it in 2000. So that's interesting. And DC also won it in 98. But in the terms of the current format, Real Salt Lake, Montreal, Toronto, and LAFC have all made the final once.
Got it. Okay. Well, like I said, it's still taking some time, but I believe hopefully in this new decade that we'll actually see an MLS team going against the top of the top teams in the Club World Cup and winning a CONCACAF Champions League, and just seeing the league grow and hopefully progresses from there.
Yeah, no, for sure. There is one thing, since we're still on MLS, that I want to mention that I just remembered. And Adrian, I'm sorry I did not tell you this, but I just remembered. Very important thing. The MLS informs players, the players union, that it will invoke the force majority clause in the CBA. So I basically, from my understanding, is that the CBA, and guys, this is why we're the semi-soccer experts, because I have not done research on this. Please, anyone could correct me, please correct me. But what I understand is that the CBA is now null and void, So I think the players union are now trying to figure out what they're going to do, but they did release a statement that they were very upset with the way the MLS, the league, decided to take.
So does that mean pretty much since there's null and void, they can go on strike?
Exactly. That
Isn't that the
seems
whole
what's
point?
going to happen. Now, mind you, this happens right after the season. Who knows what's going to happen in March, when in theory the season is supposed to start again. But this is huge. This is big news, because apparently the league didn't make a lot of money. The league has no money, is what I'm understanding. But that being said, a lot of these clubs are owned by billionaires and they're owned by major corporations. How can you tell me that a group like City Football Group or the Red Bulls or the people that own the Galaxy don't have money to pay their players, to pay their staff? I understand that because of the pandemic, you lose revenue, but I just don't see why they can't pay their players, or why they can't uphold to the agreement that they're supposed to be held accountable for.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm looking up too because I wasn't even aware about this. So apparently the MLS has invoked a force, it sounds like mahure clause. They're pretty much setting up another CBA negotiation. So with that being said, I guess they invoked this just recently, I think before the year even started. This
Yeah.
force majeure clause invoked by MLS obligates the league and MLSPA to negotiate modifications to the existing CBA in good faith for 30 days. So I don't think they're without a CBA, but they just need to do a new negotiation and do an agreement for any types of modifications to their current CBA. Given the whole COVID-19 pandemic, they're saying says its clubs lost nearly $1 billion because of this, and MLS seems to heavily rely on game day revenue, as we mentioned before. Case in point with a lot of the teams, but obviously that was down because there's no fans in the stadiums, or there is like good like 10% to 25% fans. So I think they're gonna have to change their rules or something else. Nothing has been stated or updated
Well,
yet.
I have here, it says that some of the terms that the league wants is to reduce the 5 million salary cap by 5%, reduce the players' wages by 5%.
Hmm.
And I'm sure the players are not going to be
They're not
happy
gonna like that. Oh hell
because
no!
remember, like MLS is where a lot of the players make the bare minimum, which is only about 50,000.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous how you're playing professional soccer players 50,000.
50,000, and you only get the couple players, the designated players, or the players on the foreign spots that are making the six figures or $1 million contracts. Meanwhile, the majority, especially for the American players, they're making 50 or 60K, which granted I would be happy with 50, 60K right now, but for a professional athlete, that's very important. And who knows, they might also be cutting health insurance. That's a big thing for a lot of players, especially those who get injured, who have
Yeah,
long-term ACL tears or Achilles tears or concussions. That's another thing. I feel like they would probably like snip the healthcare or reduce the effectiveness of having good healthcare. That's a thing.
yeah. Especially the healthcare out here is very costly, to say the least, in America.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's going to be very detrimental. And especially if you do pay cuts for any of the players, I feel like that's just bogus. They have to. I think the league should do better. Granted, you're gonna have to do pay cuts, but if anything, I think it should be more from like the people who, the higher ups, taking a pay cut as well. But we're not gonna see that happening because these greedy fucks don't want to risk their own salary, conscious everyone else's.
It's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it's really the players that put their lives at risk. They put their health at risk. Not only are they risking getting COVID, they're risking having a long-term injury like God forbid a ACL, broken leg, whatever the case may be. They're the ones who put their body on the risk. And remember, people only play 15, if you're lucky, 15 years of professional soccer, and then after that, you got to figure out what else to do.
I'm gonna say 15 years if they're lucky. Not many players even manage. I think a lot of like decent, like you're not world known players play at least probably like 5 to 6 in the top leagues. I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, I don't see that many players running that playing that many years, and they're on their own.
Right. So it's very sad that they'll rather cut people, they'll rather cut the player salary than the higher up salary, the executive salary. I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who are supposed to market the league. They're the ones who are supposed to set up the TV deals, the revenue. That's their job, and they unfortunately didn't do those things.
Yeah, it's a shame though because, and the crazy other thing too is like, because now I'm getting more into this because, I don't know if we might have done an episode about this, but there was a CBA that was actually done and dusted earlier this last year in June, that a lot of the players from the players union or association did not like the outcome for the new CBA. So now they were already taking pay cuts and reduced bonuses as it is, and now they're doing this new clause where they have to deal with it and try to figure out how to maintain and to pretty much the unpredictability, because now they have to put up with what the league wants to do and all the representatives from MLS. So it's ridiculous, but I don't know, man. It sucks though because as a lot of players, they do heavily rely on this type of income, especially in the salaries, because not a lot of the MLS players are like with Adidas or Nike. They're just like pretty much normal people like us, and I don't think they get that many sponsorships as it is, because you're not gonna have your Chris Wondolowskis, your Chicharitos, your Velas, or Michael Bradley's, but there's other players who come up, or just your stagnant players who are just like who put a shift in, and they're not, I'm pretty sure they're not making more than 100K per season.
Right.
It's concerning, but hopefully it's not too detrimental. And like I said, we're just hoping that we can get as a 2021 promise, fans get coming back to the stadium, because that game day revenue is very detrimental for all MLS teams.
Right. No, it's funny how you mentioned the game day revenue. I remember in like the classes that we had, they were talking about most of the money came from the TV sponsorships now, and not so much game day revenue, which I find that interesting. Like all the box seats that they have to sell, and all the, at the end of the day, at least my impression was that always the seats that you sold in the stadium and the concessions, things like that, were always just a drop in the penny. The real overall sell of the revenue, like most of the money came from the banners that you sold in the stadium and the TV commercials and all that stuff. I'm still surprised that they lost so much money, because they still had the TV.
Yeah, I think the TV, they just account that for other types of income, or it's just crazy how these businesses are run with MLS. But like I said, we're just going to wait and see, and if anything, we'll just update you guys on what happens next with the new clause, and we'll kind of into the negotiations on the go. And this will be something we definitely want to cover, because we want to make sure MLS players are being treated fairly.
All right, so enough about MLS. Where should we go to next? What part of the world?
Across the pond. Going across the pond, mate.
Going across the pond like we always do.
Yep.
All right, so across the pond, the English, the UK, the Brexit. Brexit? How do you pronounce it? Brexit?
Yep.
Right.
Re-exit or something?
Re-exit. All right. If I'm not mistaken, this new year is the official Brexit. The United Kingdom is no longer part of the European Union, I think, or whatever the case may be, and that the European Union has struck a a trade agreement with England.
Yeah.
That was the whole holdup with the Brexit. Now we don't really care about the economics of all that stuff. What we care is that how is that going to affect
the EPL?
The EPL, the most lucrative league in the world.
So what I was showing you an article before we went live was that there's a lot of pros and cons that go on with the new Brexit rules that affect the EPL. One of the more important things that I realized, or that we discussed about, was that now with 2021 coming into effect, each teams, I think they're only being allowed a maximum of 3 players over 18 who do not have a British passport or a proper work visa. So for example, if teams are trying to sign players from like other parts of the world, they need to get them on a work permit. And not just that, but there's also more specifications. So what I realized as well was that they divide all the leagues, or certain types of leagues, into different bands. So for example, like the EPL considers itself number 1 band, along with La Liga, Serie A, Ligue 1 in France. These are like the top of the top leagues, and that the difficulty in getting a visa shouldn't be that hard if need be, or a work permit. And then the second tier, I mean, that's not the second tier, the second band, Jesus Christ, I can't forget it. But the second band is pretty much teams that are just outside, like you would consider, I guess, the Scottish FA, other leagues. Let me just get here just to make sure. The Portuguese league, Eredivisie, the Dutch league. the Belgian First Division, the Turkish League, and the EFL. And then the band three, you have like the Russian Premier League. And what is interesting is that not just the Russian Premier League, and actually the Scottish Premier League is in this third band, but you got Liga MX in the third league, and the Brazilian Serie A and the Argentina Primera División is included in band three. So with that being said, like if you have a player who is in the band three, for them to get a work permit is pretty much not that difficult, and it's pretty much easier now. So what they're saying is that this is going to probably set a precedent for a lot of the English Premier League teams to start scouting in South America, especially in the Brazilian, Argentinian regions, to see if they can get any players 18 and up, as a transfer, and hopefully get them, accumulated, get them a work permit within then, because supposedly that's going to be the easiest way to process and to get these players ready and signed up.
Yeah, so it seems like the thing with the ban that they're doing is, they're trying to gauge a player's usefulness, or
I feel like it's segregation.
I mean, I wouldn't call it that. It's to be honest and to be fair. If you ranked all, especially like if you take the leagues for example, if you just rank them 1 through 10, you could dispute which is number one between Argentina and Brazil. But then I saw that in the next tier was like Colombia, Chile, and then after that in the following tier was like Paraguay, Uruguay. And to be fair, historically you get more productive players from Brazil and Argentina than you would get it from Colombia and Chile, and then Uruguay, Paraguay, and that's all. You could discuss which league is better than whichever, but what it seems to me is like they're just trying to gauge your productiveness. And I saw like in what was in the second band, if you play Copa Libertadores and Copa Sudamericana, you were easier to get a work permit.
Yeah.
And that
so
makes
if you're
sense.
playing for the elite teams.
That makes sense. If you're playing for a team playing in the continental competition, you're more likely to obviously say, okay, he's playing in Copa Libertadores, he's more likely to be good long term than someone who's playing second division in Colombia. That kind of makes sense to me. And they've been doing something similar to that. I know that prior to all this Brexit, like if you were a 16-year-old and you wanted to play overseas in England, if let's say you were coming from Colombia or Brazil, you had to have featured for the youth national team before you were able to play in like the academy at Chelsea. So if I was 16 and I never played for the Colombian national team, even if I was good enough, because I did not play in the Colombian national team, I wouldn't be eligible to play in Chelsea's academy. So they've been doing something like that prior. But I think it's not a bad thing. It makes sense. You kind of have to weed out the people. Obviously there's a lot of people trying to go overseas and play football. But to a point that you said, I think it's interesting that they're going to do more scouting in Brazil and Argentina. And that seems like a very weird concept, because I thought they were already doing that. I thought they were already scouting a lot of players overseas. That to me is like, that's a given. All the big teams have scouting networks. I think it is going to be more of an issue for lower league teams, for like League One, League Two teams, maybe some championship teams that don't have the resources to go overseas and quickly poach a kid from Brazil, because it's going to cost money. As prior, it didn't really as much when the United Kingdom was part of the European Union.
Yeah, and the other thing too, obviously the whole thing about the Brexit as well is to also promote, I guess, from within their own like academies and within their own country's players, because there's been a lot of talk saying, there's not that many English players who have been showing up or who have made a or who have not been considered as highly ranked, and they just rather get a player from overseas because they're perceived as like the next Messi or Neymar, etc. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's still like a little iffy with me. I just want to see how it comes out. Like, I guess we can't really discuss to see the ramifications of this until like 2-3 years into it, because this is fairly new, and it could be done right. But I just feel like it's going to be. It might also feature like a lot of like last lacklusters, especially if they like loan out players and never even have any players signed in, like they actually buy them and never even use them.
Hmm.
So it's an intriguing case to say the least.
It's a very intriguing case. You know, it also there's going to be another thing. Like you have a top player from Germany. He's like, yeah, um, you know, it's going to be easy for them to get the work permit, but how motivated am I going to be able to want to play in Germany? Now, I don't know what the tax code is or how taxes are done in Europe or in England or in Germany, but I know, like, let's say if you're an American and you play overseas, you get taxed. I know Pulisic gets taxed in the UK, but he also gets taxed in America. Pulisic has to file taxes in the United States. Now, I don't know if that's the case for someone playing in Germany, from Germany, playing in England, like Timo Werner. Is that how I pronounce his name? He
Yeah.
plays for Chelsea. So does he now, because Brexit's out of the European Union, does he still have to pay taxes in Germany and in England, or he's just paying taxes in Germany? That's another incentive, you know. Or just even something simple is like how much tax do I get taxed on my income? You know, is it different rate from the European Union, or is it a lower rate from the European Union, or do I have to pay both? Because technically, if you're German, Italian, French, or Spain playing in Spain, you're still a European citizen.
Yeah.
You're part of the European Union. You're just now living in another country. You know, those are also other incentives. That's not.
Yeah, and I think because now with Brexit, I think that does affect them even more. Coming to think about it, because they will consider European Union, et cetera, et cetera. I'm pretty sure the brackets or the way they file their taxes or whatever the procedure is out there was done differently, not to how it is now. So it's gonna be, like I said, it's gonna take us a couple of years to see how this does come
Right, because
out.
like especially with the passport,
Yeah,
you don't hold the German passport, you hold the European passport.
yeah.
It's gonna be a couple of years down the line. We're gonna see the effects of it, and you know the EPL might not be the strongest league in the world again.
May not see, or they just may have feature like a lot of Argentinian or Brazilian players going forward, because I feel like that's where the heavily recruitment is going to be, especially for teams like that have the big money like Chelsea, City, um,
Right. And
fucking
and
Arsenal.
before we switch topics and to talk about my favorite topic, the European Super League.
Oh, well, actually, the one other thing too before we get there, I forgot to mention, since we were talking about Brexit, the other thing that's been a little bit of issue going on, I'm pretty sure you're aware of it, but United have signed a player. He just literally just turned over 18, Amad Diallo. Not Diallo. Yeah, it is Diallo. We bought him from Atalanta. There was a whole thing with his paperwork and the visa, and that's why the deal wasn't finalized until this transfer window. And there's been not an issue trying to get his work visa or his work permit issued. It's just getting it all done and processed. So I feel like this is going to be like an example of what it's going to be for getting players from different regions or different countries. You got a lot going on, and they have to make sure to get everything sorted out. And it's actually been thrown a curveball as well, because now Atlanta is saying, "Hey, let's keep the player for the rest of the season," because they were like, "Hey, we may need to use him in case anything happens." And United is like, "Nope, we need him right now." And coming from a United fan, we need all our players up and running, and especially the players that we do buy, since we didn't get Sancho. It's going to be it's going to be very detrimental. And now we're in the title race too, so we need as many players on ship and all hands on deck. So
No, for sure. You know, but no, you're right. It's going to be a hassle, just the paperwork of getting a player over, and you think about something like the legal issue of contracts and things. That's another problem. You know, prior to Brexit, the EPL had to abstain. Not what's the word? Have had to listen to the European court. And I'm not sure how, again, law works in Europe, but I assume that if you had a contract within Europe, it goes to the European court. Now, if you sign a contract from an Italian player in the European Union to England, which contract, where do you read the contract? Do you read it in England or do you read it in Europe? Is it read in the court in Europe or read in the court in England? Things like that is also very important. It's also going to make transfers very tricky. You have an agent, already has the paperwork easy because they're within the European Union. It's easy to transfer a player from Germany to France, or Germany to Spain, Germany to Italy, or Italy to France, whatever. But how much harder the paperwork, all the filing you need to do, all the communication, all the signage you need to do to get it from Italy to England.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was the whole thing, because this kid, he was technically on a European Union passport, I think. And, if it was done pre-Brexit, he could have easily got in, like, I think within the summer transfer window. But, that did not work out because since it was a last-minute ordeal, they just had to, postpone it till the winter, or till this winter transfer window. And, they're getting the work deal finalized. And as of now, it looks like he is set to travel to Manchester. So hopefully that gets done and sorted out.
No, for sure. Right. So again, I'll probably get sorted out, but I think the incentive there isn't going to be as strong as it was before, especially with the agents.
Yeah, it's going to be a headache.
But, just a really quick topic, the European Super League, my favorite topic of all. The European Super League, this is the idea, apparently was started by Florentino Perez, the Real Madrid president, but it features all the top 6 teams of the EPL. Liverpool, Manchester, United City, Tottenham, and Arsenal, right? That's 5 or 6.
Chelsea, that was 5.
And Chelsea. How could I forget Chelsea? How is that going to affect the European Super League? It can't be a European Super League anymore because those teams are not part of Europe anymore. That's the whole thing. And I think I'm glad. For me, this is the best part of Brexit, is that European Super League is going to be a lot harder to do, and it's going to collapse.
Yeah.
And the last tangent I'm going to have here is, how does it affect UEFA as a whole? It's not necessarily that you need to be part of the European Union to be part of UEFA, because, we have Switzerland and Iceland who are not part of the European Union in UEFA. But how does that affect UEFA as a whole? That's also another thing. We're having and if all is well, the Euro Cup 2020, 2021 now, the final is going to be held at Wembley.
Wembley. Yeah, and the funny thing too, and the other shit I was gonna realize, I just realized now too, and we forgot to touch about this, but England's going into another lockdown right now.
England's going into another lockdown.
Another lockdown till March, and this was just done from the fat clown, like their Trump clone, Boris Johnson, saying, "Oh, we're gonna be in a full lockdown up until March," which I get because, there's been reports that England has a new super virus and everything. And with that being said, it's just like lockdown till March. And, especially if you're trying to get like all these players coming in. And now there's also a transfer window that's being set. And I'm pretty sure this transfer window is set till the end of January. How much more difficult is it going to be to sign a player outside of England into the EPL, given new lockdown restrictions and everything being said? I'm pretty sure they can, wiggle some room, or, pull in some favors from the government in regards to a work permit. But, it's nuts now, because now that England is shut down till March, we don't know what's going to happen to come then. Hopefully cases start go down, and everybody's abiding by it, because it's, we're undergoing another crazy wave right now, and cases are still going up, especially after New Year's and the holidays. Here in America, we don't even know how it's going to turn out as well. So, I feel like we're still like, granted, we do see a light at the tunnel with the vaccines, but how much more can we take before the vaccines actually are, implemented and everyone else gets it.
No, no, for sure, but I think at least from the English standpoint, I like to say the NHS is competent and they're rolling out the vaccines as quickly as they possibly can and as safely as they possibly can. I do think, the lockdown is good for them, shut everything out, get everything vaccinated. So by the time March hits, everything's good to go, So that's, I think, in my opinion, that's the good news. God, and not to get too political, but on our side of the pond, I don't know how it's going because the vaccine dispense to the people here in the United States is not so good, but at least from my understanding in the UK, it's a lot better. So I think it's not going to be too bad for this transfer window. It's going to be bad. It's going to be tough, because again, they did close the channel between England and France recently because of the outbreak in London. And, who knows what else that includes. And if there's a national lockdown, again, it's also a player's not going to be incentivized to do it. Teams need to do physicals. That's another thing. Are they just going to bypass these physicals?
And
There's a whole
especially if you sign, like, for example, you sign a new player for Spain, Germany, Portugal, etc. They're probably going to have to observe quarantine as well because they're coming from another region. They're being flown in. They're obviously going to have to take coronavirus test, but I'm pretty sure I don't know, they're going to be quarantined for 14 days. A lot of places, a lot of people or regulations have simmered it down to 10 days. But, there's a lot of question marks on, like, to see how this is going to affect them going forward. Because right now, nobody knows what to do because, it's just being thrown at us. And it's just going to be crazy because, there's still, like, there was some fans coming back out in the stadiums in England, and now all that shit just got shut down right as soon as the New Year's started. So we're potentially not going to be able to see fans come till like March or even April. So it sucks, but hopefully it is for the greater good, and hopefully the UK is up and running. Hopefully by summertime.
hopefully, and I'm supposed to go back for my license in May.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
It's going to be a tough one, especially because you coordinate flights and hotels months in advance. And if the
Now
UK,
you gotta like do it now sooner because you
yeah,
don't know what's going on.
later, but I don't want to do it now either because I don't know it. Am I going to be able to go? Am I even going to be able to go in? And if I go in, do I need a vaccine?
Yeah.
It's a whole bag of tricks, a whole bag of problems in there. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Adrian, anything else that we forget to touch on before we I think that's a lot. That's good for the day, but anything else we want to touch before we shut it down?
One thing though, the concussion protocol. We were talking this before we went live. That the Wolves player Raul Jimenez was, he had a very massive, not massive, I don't know the severity of it, but skull fracture. But that's a serious injury to say the least.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the crazy thing was, like, it wasn't just him, but David Luiz was the one who actually collided with him on that play. And the crazy thing, there's been a lot of discussions after the match occurred, saying the first thing was like, there should be a better concussion protocol for the EPL, for example, a substitute or something else, and also they should, David Luiz should have been taken out and checked thoroughly, because they said that after halftime, because this occurred in the first half, and they said that after halftime they noticed that Luis was not comfortable heading the ball and that he was still bleeding from his head. So that's very concerning to say the least. And I'm pretty sure they did the concussion test with him more thoroughly after the game, but still, it's so when situations like that happen, it is scary because you don't know a player, they're not right there in the head or whatever the case may be. I think they need to get fully checked out and thoroughly looked at from someone from a professional, and like a nurse, not a neurosurgeon, but somebody within the neurology department and their medic team, to see if they have a concussion or not. Because it is scary to be playing with one, and you just want to make sure all the players are safe and accounted for.
No, 100%. And I think this is the one aspect of football where science and math, medicine, all that stuff is moving towards the right direction. The concussion protocol, because soccer players head the ball. Soccer players, they'll crash with each other once in a while. Even just hitting the floor hard is enough to shake the brain in your head. Um, and they talked about the extra substitution, that if you need to substitute because of a concussion injury, you get the free sub.
Yeah.
I think that's moving in the right direction. That's moving towards the right idea, and I don't see any. I'm not going to see. I don't think there should be any pushback towards this idea. I can't see anybody arguing against this.
Yeah, and I was watching a video too, and there was a doctor who was suggesting that, this can be very simplified. If you grant you get the free sub, just put him in there, and if the player's not fit, that's a sub you can just use for the rest of the game. However, if the player is fit, he's feeling fine, they can just take out the sub and put the player right back in, after a thorough check. So I think that should be the way it should be enforced. And it's been speculated that the EPL is looking at this as a whole, and hopefully should make a new rule. I think they should have implemented it at the start of January. I don't know what the hell's the holdup, but hopefully sooner than later this should be implemented.
No, 100%. This needs to be done ASAP. Obviously, excuse me. Soccer players aren't to the same exposure of concussions as American football is, but it's something that should be accounted for. That should have been accounted for a long time ago, because interesting enough, a lot of the Premier League models based off the NFL, and yet they didn't take. When it comes to making money, the EPL will copy whatever it needs to do to make money. But when it comes to player safety, they ignore the concussion protocol, especially the ones that done in the NFL. Even the NFL also has a long way to go. The Premier League is still way behind on that idea.
Yeah, definitely aren't. They need to get together because I feel like, to make sure if a player's concussed or he's not, or just to see if he has a concussion or not. I think they should do a thorough check-in and
Absolutely.
take as much time as needed, because they can't just do it in 30 seconds. And that was the point the doctor was talking about in the video. They can't do it in just 30 seconds. And the worst thing, especially if you have fans and all them howling, screaming abuse, insulting, etc. Because you have a player there in the field, and it looks like he's time wasting all that shit. You're gonna get the shit thrown at you and everything. I think they should do it at a outside, not in the stadium, but you go into the locker room area where a doctor can reassess you and just make sure, given the time, and do a thorough check.
Right, for sure, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And that's pretty much it on my end.
Good for this. All right, I'm good on my end. I don't foresee any big news right now. I do want to touch about that CBA a little more next episode, because I think that's going to be a big deal, big game changer. But I'm good to go. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Adrian, you want to have any last words?
Just want to thank you guys for listening to us. We're already 44 episodes in. 45 is next. We'll try and get that in next week or so. And you want to thank you all, and stay tuned, because each episode is going to get bigger and better, and want to make sure 2021 is off on a great feet. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.